Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American University in Cairo. Thank you all for attending our panel on blended education, opportunities and challenges in Egypt. Our panel will feature His Excellency Dr. Tariq Shawqi, Minister of Education and Technical Education, and Dr. Vijay Kumar, Associate Dean, Digital Learning and Executive Director of Abdelatif Jameel World Education Lab at MIT, and Mrs. Maisa Jalbout, CEO of Abdallah Al Ghurair Foundation for Education. The panel will be moderated by AUC Provost Dr. Ihab Abdurrahman. The panel is going to be divided into two sections. The first section is a discussion with the panelists by AUC Provost Dr. Ihab Abdurrahman, whereas the second part is we are going to open the floor for questions and answers for the audience. But please make your questions brief and related to the topic we are discussing, which is blended education. Thank you all again. And special thanks to our media sponsors, MBC Masr, Egypt Today magazine, and Al Masri Al-Yom newspaper. We would like also to start our panel with words from AUC President Francis Richard Oni. Please. Please switch off your phones, please.
Thank you, Rahab. Thank you to everyone for coming and participating today. Thank you very much to our distinguished panelists. It is a special day at AUC. Many of the people here, not all, know just how special. This morning, we were privileged to partner with UNESCO, people from the Ministry of Telecommunications, on a theme closely integrated with the theme of this afternoon. Both of them come together in a broader theme of pioneering. What AUC tries to do here in Egypt is explore new ways of learning, new ways of serving, new ways of advancing knowledge and its transmission, which is the definition of our industry. So this morning, we were working at the end of the week designated by the United Nations, celebrating universal access to information, which is, of course, the lifeblood of education. And we had a wonderful panel, and I see a number of our guests are here also from that. That's after several days of working. This afternoon, we are exploring truly the cutting edge of higher education through online and blended learning. This is part of the great disruption in our industry. Disruption brings with it stress and strain and opportunity, huge opportunity. One of the reasons this is so exciting is the obvious one, that it promises to be able to spread the magic of education much more broadly, hopefully at lower cost, and change and impact many more lives and thus whole societies. But it does something else. And the result is what you see in this room and in the room next door. The happy problem we face now is so much interest that it expands beyond this hall. And so we have thank you to the people who are sitting next door to us and seeing us through video screens. That other impact is the enablement of collaboration without regard to geography. We're especially happy, before I mention our distinguished guests here and thank them, that we have people from outside AUC. I'm very deeply moved and touched that my colleagues from Future University, from British University, and also from Egypt-Russia University are with us here today. The Provost of British University and the President's thank you of Future University and Egyptian-Russia University. Thank you very much to the Al Ghurair Foundation, visionary foundation that not only provides possibilities for students across the Arab world to get quality, world-class educations in great universities like the American University in Beirut, the American University of Cairo, and so many others around the world, but also seeks to transform higher education itself in this region and to bring us together in a collaborative process. Again, the subject of our discussion here this afternoon. Thank you to guests from my hometown of Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I think it's fair, many people probably claim there are many fathers to success, but I think MIT has the fairest claim to inventing promoting, pushing, developing online education. First through massively open online courses, curricula, and then in taking that a step forward for the interactive piece of it. We are especially privileged to have also the Minister of Education. Dr. Tariq Shawki is one of our own. He is coming home every time he comes to AUC. We're so proud of what you are doing, Dr. Tariq, to revolutionize, reform, transform education in Egypt. If you can do it here, we can do it anywhere, and provide a great service across the region. Thank you so much for participating with us today. My colleague and friend, our Provost, Dr. Mohamed Abdelaziz, thank you for leading this discussion. And Maisa Jalbout, CEO of the Ghurair Foundation, thank you for coming to be with us today with your colleagues. Thanks again to everyone for joining us. I wish a successful conversation today.
Good afternoon. I'm really pleased to be the moderator of this esteemed panelist. I will start first by actually defining what is blended learning. Then I will give a short note about AUC effort to enhance and introduce blended learning, and then we will go to Dr. Kumar afterwards, and I'll ask him about the global picture. What is how does blended learning look globally? Then we'll talk to Mrs. Jalbout, and we'll ask her about the regional picture, and we'll ask her about how does Al Ghurair support the regional blended learning at the regional level. Then we'll focus at the end on Egypt, and we'll ask our friend and colleague, His Excellency Dr. Tariq Shawki, about Egypt's effort to improve, enhance, and empower blended learning and online learning in Egypt. So blended learning has different definitions, and the most common one that it's offering courses that integrate online and traditional face-to-face classes and our class activities. And every institutions are actually free to determine the online portion of that integration. At AUC, we actually say that online portion is, if it goes from 30 to 50% at the graduate level, then we consider this blended learning. At the undergraduate level, we actually put it at the 20%. At 20%. Do we encourage? Do we have activities related to blended learning? Yesterday, we announced the appointment of the a new position, which is Associate Provost for Transformative Learning and Teaching. And Dr. Aziz Al-Louz is going to be not leading, but enhancing and empowering and pushing the efforts to increase AUC footprint for blended and online learning, and she's among us today. I asked Dr. Aziza to give me statistics on what did we do in the last few years when it comes to online and blended learning. So currently we have trained 68 faculty to offering blended courses. We have 4 courses designed and delivered, taught in blended format. We have 15 blended courses that actually currently designed. The Graduate School of Education has piloted its first blended teacher professional development course in educational leadership. We have 5 MOOCs courses delivered, and currently we're preparing 3 more. We have an initiative at the School of Continuing Education to introduce the first blended learning certificate. It's going to be 5 courses. We have initiatives at the initiatives by the Graduate School of Education to have 4 programs and 6 courses each. Those will be offered as blended learning. The CLT, Center of Learning and Teaching at AUC, is leading the effort actually in AUC to train our faculty and actually enhance our footprint in blended learning. And currently they offer also a certificate on web-enhanced learning certificate track for our faculty. And when I say faculty, I mean full-time faculty and part-time faculty, adjunct faculty. So this is what we do at AUC, and the future we will going actually more aggressively into online and blended learning in the future. And my first question is going to be to Dr. Kumar about how does the global picture look when it comes to blended and online learning, and what is the role of MIT to enhance the blended learning and online learning globally?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure, real honor to be here. Thank you for welcoming us. I wanted to take a shortcut to the final answer, which is the real value globally, is what the president just said, which is it allows us to blend disruption, innovation, and collaboration. I mean, that's the real potency. But more specifically, and I'm also thrilled because part of what my comments are targeted with your last comment of what EUC has announced, this position for educational transformation, because I think the real potency is in educational transformation, and God knows we need it. So when we think about, at MIT over the years, when we think about open online and see what's happening, one of the things that we see, OpenCourseware, most of you in this room I'm sure have heard about MIT's launch of OpenCourseware in circa 1999, 2000, when it decided to make the content of all its courses available for everyone in the world for free. Now, the impact was what was unprecedented and what we had never imagined. Millions of users around the world either looking at those courses, modeling their curricula and modeling the programs after them, or directly using them as supplement materials, and you started getting a whiff of the kinds of influence that can happen. And what it was really about, and this is when we look at blended, this intelligent combination of on-site and online, what it really allows us to do is widen access to learning opportunities in an unprecedented manner. So that, I think, but I really want to qualify that widening access, including the line of this morning's sessions, when we were looking at your comment about how this session is so well integrated with the morning session, because when we think about widening access, it is easy to talk about numbers, and we know we need numbers. I've looked at the numbers of people, let's say in Egypt, or the numbers of people in the region who are not just hungry for learning opportunities, but need learning opportunities, who don't have access to it. In my own original home country of India, I know that population in billions, and everything in India is around billions. So lots of people needing access, so just having extensive access in the simplistic math sense of the word is what online blended education provides. But the color I want to add to it, based on this morning's session, is that it really provides access in a vectorial sense, which is, it is not just about magnitude, but it is about direction, which means what I see happening through these efforts, such as the one that Al Ghurair has supported, the work that we are doing with the AUC and AUB and other institutions, is that we are able to address the learning needs of different kinds of audiences in different ways. People come into education with different kinds of preparation, different kinds of motivation, different kinds of aspirations. Which has become much more potently sort of obvious in today's knowledge economy, where, especially in countries like here, which are galloping for development, that you need knowledgeable human resources in you need carpenters, you need engineers, you need scientists, you need rocket scientists. And in order to provide educational access to a lot of people for these diverse sets of needs with diverse aspirations, diverse preparation, you need something much better, different, more than what we had. And that's the opportunity that on-site and online provide. So when we look at it from MIT's perspective, we said, we made those courses available now through online, through the capabilities created by MITx courses, courses that are on the online platform, through programs, really revolutionary programs like the MicroMasters. We see that innovation is possible at every point in that value chain, about teaching, about delivering, about credentialing, and all of that is needed to provide, really address that access vector, which is quality, scale, and diversity of needs that it meets. So that's the potency that we see with the online learning and blended learning.
Dr. Kumar, if I can follow on that, talking to faculty across the board, they always, some of them say that blended learning and online learning is suitable only for specific disciplines, not across the board. This is, I want to actually hear your feedback on that. Additionally, people actually start to also argue, should we go totally for online learning or should we go only for blended learning? If you can give me your thoughts on those two questions.
Right. So there are two different kinds of questions. Let me take, first of all, the first answer to your question is, no, it is not only for science and math and these kinds. And I think the real value of blending, judiciously combining on-site and online, comes in the fact that different kinds of programs, different kinds of courses, and different kinds of faculty instructors have different methodologies, pedagogies that they embrace. We have heard, for instance, Harvard offering law courses through edX, where it combines the case method, which Harvard is famous for, along with online learning. So the extent to which you employ, there was a wonderful program that my colleague Shigeru Miyagawa, who's a professor in Japanese studies and culture at MIT, has done. I would really encourage you to go look at the program. It's on both the MITx site and the OpenCourseware site. It's called Visualizing Cultures, and it was to teach Japanese language and culture through images, through online communities where they explore. And it's a vivid case in where you see the application of blended learning for other than what our stereotypical vision that it's only for the science and math courses. There are many language programs, etc. So the blending allows you to address different kinds of topics, and including STEM education in different ways. And even the word flipped classroom, it gives you a choice of what to flip. You don't just have to flip lectures. You can be doing lectures here and the collaborative project work online. So this, you can do variations on that. The second question that you asked about, should it be just online, should it be just blended? So my old boss, Bob Brown, who's now the president of BU, I was his vice provost at MIT, he used to say that where you stand on a particular topic is a large function of where you sit. So when you look at this, depending on depending on the needs. So there are areas where for continuous learning, when we're talking about this blended thing, suddenly one notion that I didn't bring, which MIT is again beginning to look at through programs like the MicroMasters, is that it's providing flexible opportunities to all kinds of people who might come in for knowledge updates. So it's not just for the 4-year traditional thing. People are coming here when they want to change career trajectories, people who are at work, so who might want to participate and just take an edX course, soup to nuts, fully online, and that's okay. What we think is, and this came up over our lunch conversation when the president was talking about inquiry-based education. What we think at MIT is our large focus, our DNA, our value proposition is around active learning. We use terms like hands-on, minds-on, doing science is learning science. For us, we believe that combining on-site with online is much more valuable for the kinds of things that in fact, the online gives us opportunity to more of the on-site kinds of things, which typically we're divorcing ourselves from. So the blended, for a variety of things, we find the blended solution to be much more, if I put on my educator, EDD hat, one of the things that we talk about in EduSpeak is novice learners. A lot of people who are coming. When we widen access, there are lots of people who are coming into education for the first time. They're early learners, they're novice learners. And for them, contact, education we say is a contact sport. For them, for those kinds of novice learners, new audiences, I particularly believe that the blended approach is a more productive approach, at least initially.
Dr. Tara, I know that you wrestled a lot with the community when it came to the definition of flipped classroom. We'll talk about that in a minute. But going regionally now, I would like to ask Mrs. Jalbout about the AUC MIT Al Ghurair partnership in blended learning. Al Ghurair actually led that effort to bring the people together from the MIT, AUC, and AUB to enhance the footprint of blended learning in the region. Would you please give us a description on what was the vision of Al Ghurair Foundation on that, and what will be the effort to enhance blended learning in the region?
Sure, but let me start first by saying hello to everyone. Thank you for coming out. This is such a wonderful turnout. It's great to see the enthusiasm, not just by the president and the senior staff, but also by students and faculty. I think it's really heartwarming, and for us as a foundation, gives us assurance that this is an area that there's a lot of interest and hopefully a lot of collaboration and innovation to come, not just internationally, but from within the region. Your question about why we're doing this and why we're working with MIT and AUC, we as a foundation, as some of you might know, are focused on providing access to education to the highest achieving students in the region who don't have access to resources to go to great universities like AUC and AUB. When we looked at the need that's out there and the amount of brilliant young people in the region who deserve to have access to a quality education, we figured out very, very quickly, and you should know that we're only a year and a half old, that there is no way with even the resources that we are blessed to have are going to be able to even scratch the surface. Mm-hmm. So for us, they say necessity is the mother of invention, and online learning is definitely the invention that we need to be able to reach a wider number of students across the region. So we're very fortunate that we were already working with AUB and AEC to place smart young people on campus in face-to-face learning, but we're looking for more, and we're looking for universities who are already involved in blending education, in looking at the opportunities to enhance the quality of the education that they're providing to students. So that was really our starting point. And with MIT, we started with looking at how we can bring the quality of the education that they're providing globally to the region. So we've been working with them on providing opportunities for young people to study online through what's called the MicroMasters, which is essentially an opportunity to do half a master's online. You get a professional certificate, and after that you're able to continue your education on in a number of universities that accredit that degree or that half degree. And it's been going great, and we are focusing on subjects that are not available widely or at the quality that MIT is providing, such as supply chain management, development economics, and other areas. But again, what we found was that the young people who were subscribing to that education were ones that were already privileged in many ways, because they speak English perfectly, because they have already had access to very high quality math and science education. So it's a great opportunity for them to upskill and to continue their education to the next level. But what it didn't serve to do is for us to widen that pool of talent across the region. So this collaboration is very much based on that. It's looking at what the region can do, what universities that are already invested in the region can do to widen the pool of talent that can have access to its own education, and hopefully allow it to also innovate and expand its quality, increase its quality at the same time. So we're grateful to the opportunity that this collaboration is producing, and we think it's really just still very early. It's an infant stage. Many more opportunities to come, and we hope that during this process, it will also give an opportunity to professors who are thinking about how they can improve their own way of teaching and learning, to take advantage of this process, because it isn't just about putting courses online. It's really about reflecting on how to use technology as a tool in teaching and learning.
If I may, I'm sure that you, before you actually look at the partnering with AUC, you have mapped the region for other universities to partner with. Would you please let us know why did you, Al Ghurair Foundation, decided actually to build that partnership between MIT and AUC? So why AUC?
I know what you want me to say.
I'm the provost.
And a very good one. Very simply, we put out a call to universities in the region and looked around to see who was already invested in quality education, was interested in exploring, expanding access, and was already engaged in the use of technology in blended learning. And like I said, we were already collaborating with AUC and AUB. We found that the leadership was very responsive, that the faculty were very interested, and that the potential for using it as an opportunity to spin off bigger partnerships was there. Just now we had over lunch a conversation about we hope this is really the beginning of a much greater collaboration, not between just MIT, AUC, Al Ghurair Foundation, and AUB, but also to bring on other universities into the fold. And given that the American University of Cairo is a leader here in Egypt, we think it can also be a leader in collaborating with universities across the region.
I'm sure also the public would like to hear about success stories of Al Ghurair when it comes to blended learning, and you would like to also to hear about if do you face any obstacles in introducing and pushing blended learning in the region?
I think given that the minister is here, he can speak to many of the challenges much more eloquently than I can. But no, seriously, I mean, the fact that you have the Minister of Education here and speaking to the issue of online and blended learning speaks volumes. I think, kudos to you, Your Excellency. I hope that ministers of education across the region see and are encouraged by your participation. We certainly are. There are many, many challenges with adopting online learning in the region. We know that, for example, much of the content and the courses that are available are coming from Western universities, which means that they're in English and they're not necessarily available to students across the region. I mean, we're sitting in a university where students speak English fluently. Many or most of the students across the region do not speak English. That's one of the issues. Another issue is access to technology for those who come from underserved backgrounds. And another one is really around the fact that, students in the region are not necessarily always able to and ready to learn independently. We're finding that there's a bit of a reluctance and hesitation towards that. I mentioned earlier that the students who are signing up are ones that are already doing quite well. That's not to say that we're not surprised and we're not finding those gems of students who come from refugee camps or rural areas who surprise us, that they're able to study online, are very encouraged and persevere, and we're starting to graduate some students from the courses that they're taking at MIT. So we think that the challenges are plenty, but they're not insurmountable. The technology and the expertise that is available out there is very encouraging. We're very encouraged by the collaboration that we have with MIT, where we're able to look at some of those challenges from a very positive angle. For example, the technology is allowing us now to be able to dig deeply into where students are having challenges and to provide them with the support in real time so that they're able to overcome those learning challenges and move on, as opposed to be discouraged and leave off. Another challenge is around accreditation. You know that a lot of governments across the region are not accrediting online learning. They're hesitant, they're reluctant, they're a little bit worried about what that means for a number of reasons. And I think much of it is valid. There are a lot of poor quality courses available out there. But we think that we need to overcome that fear and we need to move forward. The Arab world is really behind when it comes to online learning. What we're seeing now in terms of innovation is really remarkable. We have universities that are creating consortiums in which students can take courses from a number of universities and still earn a degree at a top university in the world. And when you think about that opportunity and that's available to somebody that's in the United States, the UK, and that it's not available to Arab students, that's really heartbreaking. So it's really time for us to come into the fold when it comes to online learning. In terms of opportunities, we could probably spend the next hour talking about that. I think there were a lot, we alluded to a lot of those opportunities, but I'd like to emphasize a couple. One is that there are millions of young people across this region who do not have access to high quality education and higher education. And one of the greatest motivations for us as a foundation to invest in online learning is to reach those young people in refugee camps, in rural areas, wherever they may be, even stay-at-home moms, people who are trapped in low-paying jobs, who want to upskill, who want to move into jobs of the future. There are tremendous opportunities. We're also very, very encouraged by the fact that the cost of online learning is going down. There are many universities now that charge you the same price to study online as in face-to-face. They do that because they want you to believe that the quality is the same. They will, for example, one of the partner universities we work with is Arizona State University, and I encourage you to look online. We have 28 very high quality master's degrees offered in which you can have a great education, and we pay the same price for you to study online as if you were to go face-to-face. That's one model. But we're also encouraged by other universities, such as Georgia Tech, that's providing a master's online in computer science for a much, much lower price than the face-to-face, and still able to graduate very high-quality students, the majority of which are getting jobs immediately after graduation. So those are just some of the opportunities, and I'm sure we'll come back to more. Thank you.
It's a coincidence. I was looking at that degree offered by Georgia Tech today, and actually I took the website. I sent the website to our computer science programmer. I told them, look at it. So, Dr. Tariq, it's always a pleasure to have you at AUC. Education in Egypt I'm sure that it's in good hands, but you have lots of challenges. So one of the issues that we would like to talk to you about today when it comes to Egypt is, what are the prospects of blended learning in Egypt? Will it be part of the planned education system, especially in STEM education? This is the first question. The second one is what are the challenges and the opportunities in adapting online blended learning in Egypt?
Well, good morning, everybody, and I'm really, really happy to be here. I'm always happy to be here, but I'd like to greet President Richard Oni, my good friend, Provost Ihab Abdurrahman, of course, Maisa Jalbout, and Vijay. There's so many friends here, I can't count the names, really. I mean, Dr. Abada, Dr. Ashraf, Dr. Hassan, Dina, Rasha, everybody. So, Adham and Aziza inside and Huda. Well, while listening to you guys, a lot of memories rushed in my head. Actually, mentioning MIT, I was remembering just counting the years. I worked at MIT 30 years ago, and I cannot believe such time has passed. And also remember the struggle with, I was passionate about technology, and in '95 I was teaching at Illinois, as I said on some occasions, and wanted to teach online back then. That's over 20 years ago, and was struggling writing HTML code, trying to teach fracture mechanics and online with very primitive tools. And so I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about technology, and have seen it progress over 20 years. And while at UNESCO, I was the cheerleader for this whole area. But if you want me, you have to answer the question about challenges. You have to bring enough food for the next 2 days here in camp here. It's
We're not leaving till we hear the challenges at the start.
No, I mean it sounds really like a big, huge challenge, almost near impossible when you look at the reality on the ground and the ideas we are exchanging here. However, I'm either optimistic or crazy, but the word disruption is a dear word to me. I mean, I like disruption, transformation, innovation, all of that. So we are really trying to leapfrog, to take the Egyptian education system from the location where it is to really a much higher place in the ranking through a huge disruption. So we are really doing a surgical operation that takes a bit of risk. But I see no other way but really using those technologies wisely and smartly. I think the problem with Egypt is not technology or curricula or assessment or anything. It's just to refocus, repurpose education, redefine education. It's a cultural problem in the minds of people. You have to redefine what education is. Establish the culture and joy of learning, bring that back. I mean, they just have lost it. I mean, it's I don't think Egypt is talking about learning. Egypt is talking about scoring, about degrees on the wall, about a place in college, not about learning. And you cannot, all of this will go nowhere unless you really convince people it's all about learning, bring it back, so they get excited about all of this. Otherwise, it's a huge resistance. A resistance not because they want something else, so you have to create the appetite, first of all. So we have a major cultural problem, and I think that's why I'm working on that more than really technical matters. We have been really putting a lot of pieces together, and they are really crystallizing. You'll be surprised that, in my mind, we will do, I think, one of a kind, blended learning at a mass scale within 12 months from today. And that's how crazy it is. So it's not a pilot or anything. And I know there is a lot of media in the room, and I'm trying to keep few secrets, but so I'm trying to find a balance between telling you a coherent story and not disclosing everything. Well, for the last 2 years, we were really secretly building for this. So I'm really a true believer in technology and what it could do if used properly. Learning a lot, obviously, from the challenges. But just to give you a sense of the scale of the problem, I think most of you know, but we seem to forget that this monster of an education system, how large it is. I mean, we have over 22 million kids in this system, that every morning there are 22 million kids going to school here. So just trying to manage that is just a nightmare. And there are like 1.35 million teachers, 27 government administrative structures you have to control and upgrade and manage. The stakeholders are really the entire country, because the parents of those 22 million kids are the rest of the population. So basically, everybody is just asking and pushing back and kicking you and so on. So it's not a comfortable habitat. So it's just very difficult to balance everything. And the problems they are talking about are not related to the vision we are going for. So we are not talking the same language. And of course, the noise about, I mentioned once the idea of a flipped classroom, which was safe to do here at AUC, but saying that to the public was crazy. You must have read what was written on Facebook and WhatsApp. They thought I'm a lunatic talking about flipped classroom. So, but the plan is really moving. The biggest problem really is what I started with, the culture and the definition of learning, and in the minds of young parents also. Young parents are not really aware that they're not teaching anything to their kids, and they want scores, they want degrees. And that's the battle over a place in college is really all what it's all about. To talk about learning as fun and joy of learning is a new language, but I'm trying to push that concept. For the past 2 years before the ministry, we were working on two major thrusts. One was teacher preparation for that day. Actually, we had that in mind. That program we call Teachers First was always planned aiming at this dream. And the other big project, which people didn't evaluate yet as to what it really is the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. The Egyptian Knowledge Bank is the foundation on which we are planning to build all of this, either for basic education or higher education. So this has grown tremendously, and the next 3 months will witness almost a duplication in size for the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. It's going to really expand to become Egypt's e-learning platform, and whether we use it for online or blended learning and so on. We are adding about 17 different content providers to it, and a huge learning management system, and map the Egyptian curricula. It's all digitally available now, and a lot of exciting stuff will happen there. So this is another Lego piece, really, and teacher training is a huge umbrella. Under that, we do train teachers on the use of this digital content in the classroom. We have special training for STEM teachers. We just signed yesterday an agreement with Ain Shams University to train 6,000 teachers for kids with special needs and for inclusion. A lot of training exercises. Of course, we are aware of the IT infrastructure, the lack of a proper access to students. But we have solutions for that. We have worked with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, with the military, with a lot of local manufacturers, and we're going to put in the hands of every child, teacher, and administrator an access device somehow. Okay. And we are working with the telecom providers. There's a big party tonight for the Force company that enters this field, and the agreement is to have 4G access to every one of the 22 million kids for free to access education, so they will all have access at any point in Egypt. So access is not the issue, and the content is brewing, is in the kitchen, in the EKB or the Knowledge Bank. Teachers are being trained very quickly, and we have put that as criteria for promotion, criteria for salary raise, for everything. So we're working on teachers, on content, on the infrastructure. It's all coming together, but this is the only way to solve the problem of large numbers and quality, degradation of quality, and the dependence on teachers and administrators. We're going to use these devices also to control the entire system, because right now it's an archaic system built on faxing papers and things like that. So there is no technology, even processes in workflow and administration. يعني بيروقراطية فظيعة. We are testing a control room through which we're going to see every child in Egypt through those devices. We know that we can assess students remotely. We can see what they access, what they do, their performance, administrators. So this is more than just blended learning. It's blended learning, blended assessment, and blended management. Okay? It's face-to-face as well as online. So it's a very ambitious program, but I can't even make that conversation on a public TV channel because I have to censor myself because every sentence is going to create a buzz. You have to explain. So there is a distance between the dream and the condition on the ground. And there is a lot of work now. I know Russia very well. When we talk about media, now I understand the power of media. We need the media now to really prepare the society for what's coming. It's not easy at all. Not technically. My challenge is not technical. The challenge is really convincing people to take this seriously, to rethink of learning, to have fun while doing that, remove the stress. In a nutshell, we have this elephant of a system that's loaded with problems, absolutely loaded with problems. But I think we cannot fix that system more than a certain threshold. Okay, so it's like in India, it's a huge system. So we decided, or I managed to convince the president, said, look, this is like an old car. We're not going to fix that car. It's always going to be an old car, even if we repaint it or do anything to it. Let's just get a new car. And
Thank you, Dr. Tariq. Thank you, Dr. Tariq. I have other questions actually for the Minister of Education, but I know that the audience also have many questions, so I will give the chance to the audience. Actually, Hanan is gonna, Rehab, Ms. Rehab.
Sorry, before we start,
moderate that
as
part.
I said, the questions and answer sessions, your questions have to be brief and related to the topic of the lecture, which is blended learning. But before we start, I just want to introduce Ahmed Saeed, who can give us a hint of his experience with blended learning. He's currently a student doing MicroMasters at MIT.
Hi, my name is Ahmed Saeed. Actually, I have a professional certification from AUC in engineering management, but currently I'm taking a MicroMasters in supply chain management with MIT with the support of Al-Ghurair Foundation. I think blended learning and online learning is a very interesting way of learning. Actually, for me, it's better than the traditional way. There are main two factors. The first is it eliminates the geographical distance. Learning with a huge university with MIT became so easy with the online learning. It would be more difficult to have a great content offered by a great university like MIT without the online learning and the blended learning. The second factor is the time. I can study whenever I want. Actually, I am studying after work, at the weekend. One of the times I was in the business trip in UK, actually I have finished my assignment. So it's a very interesting way of learning. I think the future is for the online learning more than the traditional way. So I encourage everybody to try to have to have only one course, and I think it will you have such a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are going to open the floor for your questions. Yes, please.
My question is for Dr. Tariq. My name is Saif Al-Buzaid from Mavericks. So my question is on the policy plan for innovation in education, because of course partnering with either private sector or civil society organizations or trying to introduce something new to the education as a field is important. And for us as schools, we're trying to we actually have blended schools, and we're trying to innovate a new approach that is actually Egyptian. It's for this part of the world. It respects the infrastructure, the context, and everything. But there are always regulatory, a lot of bottlenecks that actually come along. So the example that I always like to give is that in the conditions of the set forth by the Hayat al-Abniya al-Ta'limiyya, the General Authority for Education and Buildings, is that the maximum length of a classroom has to be 9 meters. So in traditional education, it makes sense because they don't want the last kid in the last row to be away from the smartboard or the whiteboard or the blackboard. But in a non-traditional setup or in a blended learning setup, or for example, we're doing station rotation, we want actually a much bigger room. So until this day, we have 3 schools, but we're unable to fully implement our model because of this and a lot of regulatory restrictions for that. So I think we need some sort of innovation zone that actually empowers innovators in the field to sort of be away from those regulatory restrictions. I know, of course, that creating an alternative قراصة شروط, for example, is a huge project and it takes a lot to do, but maybe giving this waiver could be a good step as well. So I would love to know about the policy plan for that, Dr. Tariq. Thank you.
Rahab, can we take several questions, then we can answer later?
Yes, we can. We would like to take also questions from the other room.
Is it all right if I start? I would like to tell Dr. Tariq, Your Excellency, you've actually given us the answer to your challenge. Because when we were talking about all the magnificent opportunities and about blended education generally, and talking about blended education in Egypt, the challenges are great. So I was thinking to myself, how can we prepare? Okay, we're giving quality education. Quality education needs preparation. So how can we prepare our children? Do we prepare them at a younger stage when they're in schools? And you gave me the answer. You said we have to teach people, I mean, sort of, the real solution is to think of education as a joy, the joy of education. And this is what actually, if I allow myself to say so, is something we've been doing for the last sort of 2 or 3 years, doing this in our public schools. And it is working. So I think we should always think of starting with the schools before we expose the wider audience to something which is so quality, as you said, but maybe not everybody is prepared or has enough of the knowledge to be able to make use of this. So I was thinking maybe you could give me an answer to that. Thank you.
Please, in order to have time for everyone who is interested to ask, please make your questions short, very short, to give the opportunity for everyone who wants to ask.
Actually, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm coming from the airport directly to here. There are 2 problems with blended learning. In the last 5 years, I worked in the opposite side. So I was in the regulator and the regulatory authority and the Supreme Council of Universities. And I know how they think in the regulatory authorities, not only in Egypt, but in the region, in Emirates, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia. They don't accept blended learning. But the Supreme Council of Universities have accepted the blended learning, but with some conditions. The condition is that it is licensed and accredited in the country it's given with, and there is a partner, academic partner in the region. So this type of MIT, AUC, AUB partnership, actually it will be licensed and accredited in Egypt very easily, no problem for that. But it is only in certain disciplines. There are disciplines which are accepted, of course, medicine, dentistry, surgery, and even engineering. Up to now, the Supreme Council does not accept that. The other part is the students for blended learning. The students of blended learning, after taking the certificate, they come and tell us, equalize this to the regular certificate. And this is a problem. If I stay 4 years in MIT, it does not equal to even a very good blended learning with MIT. So it does not, we cannot equalize this. So this is very important that the student knows that it is not equal. It may be better than regular education, but it is not equal to regular education, and this is very clear now from the regulatory point of view.
think we can, happy if we can take those two questions now and we'll comment on Dr. Ashraf, then we'll continue. So Dr. Tariq, would you please, for the first question is for Mr. Saif Abu Zaid, would the ministry allow innovation and the way we look at the classroom to allow blended learning in the future?
Well, I know Saif and I know his experiment very well, and we're very excited about that, and similar work by young innovators. Saif, you're talking about this is what I call the old car. The old car is that bureaucracy, and that bureaucracy is very old. It has been designed years ago and hasn't changed since, and it's not ready for this. Well, for the ministry, I'm also the minister from Mars. So this is, you have to know that. So
actually, from Mars to Dr.
So this is so alien, and but there are plans, even to the extent that you know the entire government is moving to the new capital by end of 18, and a lot of stuff will happen in 18. The new we'll buy the new car and run it, which is the new education system by September 18. Change Thanawi Al-Amma by September 18, but also move part of the ministry, this is the important part, to the new capital. Why am I mentioning that? Because it's like you're building a new ministry as well, with a new set of rules, a new regulatory framework. So those rules that you're suffering from will be wiped out. But there are so strong, big guardians. I feel like playing Nintendo. You know, when you reach to kill that monster at the end of the game and then save the princess. This is where we are. We have to kill that monster who is guarding those rules. So anyway, there will be a lot of changes in this particular area. There is a new law coming regulating private, international, all forms of education other than the classical one it was serving. So this is coming.
So for the second, actually for the comment from Dr. Ashraf Hatim, I would like to ask Mrs. Jalbout and Dr. Kumar to comment on that in a minute. Is it really true that online blended learning does not deliver the same quality for students, the same quality of students that we get from face-to-face teaching? So I will go to Mrs. Jalbout first, then I will ask Dr. Kumar to comment on that later. You go first.
Vijay, you probably should answer that first, but let me just say, we only have our students' experiences. Of course, there's tons of research, and the research is clearly indicating that with the improvements in technology and our science of learning, in controlled situations now, when delivered through technology, sometimes, in fact, it is better than face-to-face. Because it's relevant to the quality that you're receiving face-to-face. And you just heard a young man who's doing the MIT MicroMasters at the moment saying that he's having a better experience. Of course, much of it depends on also individual learning styles and the alternative opportunities that are provided. But is it true that it's not equal? I think so. I think it's not necessarily always equal to the face-to-face opportunity. I mean, I think about our students who are studying with MIT right now, and the fact that their students, their peers are from all over the world. Some of the smartest young people from around the world, some of the best professors in the world teaching them. And the fact that they can have and work on case studies from around the world, real problems, whether they're in their home or somewhere else, that's very different than the traditional style of learning that happens face-to-face in many, many universities across the region. So is it equal? Probably not.
Dr. Kumar?
Yes, I think Mesa touched on it, and the question itself had sort of the answer buried in it, which is that it is different, not necessarily of a lesser quality. I know when we're talking about the alignment, it is, and there is no doubt it is different. And I'll give you, at MIT we have this line, we say that, you might remember this, in God we trust, all others bring data. So we have some evidence that we point to, and there are a couple of points that I'll make. And thankfully, you said the questions had to be short, not the answers. But but there are two dimensions over here. when MIT courses went on edX, there was a term that was being bandied around which was saying these courses are MIT hard, meaning that these courses were not separate from the kind of quality, kind of difficulty that we expect, in an MIT course, And you're giving different kinds of credentials to it, but they were valued credentials because there were parts of the experience like being on site, the peer kind of experiences that were not there, but the courses were hard. But one of the things that was happening with all this is you were really looking at what were the learning outcomes that you wanted to desire. And, you also say you are what you measure, right? And so the measurement of that quality, it might be different. In this case, like in the case of the supply chain, who's the customer here? You're the person who hires you, the person who's going to take you for the next level of education. That person, that entity is going to determine the value proposition of that experience, right? And so, and what it also points to is that, and I really love the old car metaphor that you have, We can't measure the value of this experience through old measures. You really have to rethink what is it that you're assessing, what is it that you're measuring, and perhaps we even shift because educational institutions, we are pretty much self-referential systems. We educate, we measure. It's a nice, comfortable cycle, right? And that's why sometimes we get the marketplace tells us that your graduates are not relevant, your education, there's alignment issues and stuff. This way, there is some amount of that shift for that measurement that is going to the purchasers of the system. Those, of the entity. So that's where, so yes, different, quality different, but quality high, and I really like the statement, sometimes better, and that's where I will give you a small piece of evidence. Introductory chemistry course, 3091 introductory, which is MIT courses, all the courses have numbers, as the folks in AUC have begun to realize. So this is an introductory chemistry course, which was initially an edX course, and we asked the Professor Michael Chima in this case to do it as in a blended form at MIT, right? So when we looked at it, so if you looked at the fact that there were various topics or concepts to be covered in that course, you pick a particular topic. In many of the topics, if you looked at the performance of the students in 2011, that is pre-blended, PB we'll call it like BC, let's say 18% of the students mastered a particular concept. If you looked at the data in 2014, 2015, 89% of the students mastered the data. Now that is significant difference. So what we are saying is there is that quality improvements that we're beginning to see, and what we want to see is under what conditions, is it replicable, those are all questions, but you have to think about what you're measuring, I believe, and then to be able to make the quality statements. We have maintained that for us, active learning, we want to bring the joy, the practice, the tools of research and undergraduate learning. Can we still do those things with online and blended? If the answer to that is yes, then we will maintain its quality and it can be done at scale. That's
May I say you wanted to comment also on regulations?
Yes, that's right, because I think that's such a critical point. And often when we talk to universities or students and faculty about why they're hesitating about online learning, they say because government hasn't accredited and the regulation hasn't caught up. But I really find that baffling. If you applied that same logic today, you wouldn't have some of the most important inventions in science, in business. I mean, you wouldn't have Uber, right? Uber wouldn't be waiting for the regulatory market to be set before it operated. It drove that regulation. Sure, there are issues now. They're going back and forth as to how that framework needs to be put in place to ensure that the customer is protected, that the drivers are protected, that there's a safe environment. But innovation is going to drive the agenda, not the regulatory environment.
Now, just commenting on this discussion, that the word disruption by itself is just the enemy of the status quo. And this is the unexpected kind of confrontation. So everything that's on the ground is designed for, this is designed to suffocate innovation. So actually, what is coming next year, for example, is that we're going to just wipe out all the regulations that regulate private schools. We leave them alone. We can't leave them alone today because we don't have the alternative, affordable, high-quality education for the rest. So we have to maintain something for people. But once we do, we'll just say, okay, go run it. Just it's a free market. Go run it the way you like and compete with each other. And we don't have to engage, not El Abnei and neither anybody else. But it takes time to break down these barriers. So.
Yes, back to me.
Thank you. My name is Mohamed Abdelaziz. I'm the Corporate Affairs Manager for Cisco Egypt. It's an IT company, for who doesn't know. Sorry? Just an IT company, yeah. First, I just want to capitalize on what our brilliant student was saying. Is not only giving, I want to add basically is that it gives equality, so everybody could learn wherever they are, the same type of education and accessibility, because blended means you're using communication. And once this is available to everyone, like the Minister, His Excellency just mentioned, that if all the students by maybe next year or in the very near future will have accessibility to the content, then everybody studying in the US will have the same curriculum here. And that's what we are doing in Cisco Networking Academy. We are already having this worldwide. We already trained over 6 million students, not only on IT Cisco-related curriculums, but also to any type of development in the starting from the IT literacy up to, we would say, the PhD of computer. My question to the esteemed panel is, how do you see the partnership between the NGOs on the foundations and with the public sector? And how do you see this going? Because I remember one of your Excellency notes in last April. You said, I want to deal heavily with the private sector to take this sector move forward. So I would like to hear from you how this will go forward. Thank you.
This is, I remember I mentioned a few times, we realized and we say that changing, reforming education in Egypt or transforming education in Egypt is a responsibility of everybody. The private sector, the society, civil society, the NGOs, not just the government. I mean, government cannot do it, and neither technically or resources, it has to be the dream of everyone to survive, past the government or two or three, or past the president or two or three. So it has to be carried by people. Having said that, we're working really with lots of countries, with lots of UN agencies, with lots of partners, with a long list of private sectors. Our doors are wide open. But we're trying also to organize some mechanism to get help or organize the help from the civil society, from the NGOs, and we're going to make it easier for them to contribute to the ministry and open the door. So my answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, we have to work together. We just believe in the direction and we all contribute to it. And we just collected also the international partners and said, look, you used to pay money following your program, now we just have to follow our dream. If you want to help us contribute to our dream, because there were scattered efforts everywhere. And maybe it's a chance for the ministry to connect all these efforts. I know about a few, I'm sure there are many more. I really like young people, young ideas, creativity and so on, so we're all for that.
If I may, do you want me to follow up?
Please go ahead. Dr. Kumar, you would like to follow up?
Yeah, just
yes, please.
A quick response. I mean, this afternoon over lunch, I think Mesa used the term ecosystem. So the ecosystem has industry, it has academic institutions, it has NGOs, it has government, and the solutions in this are ecosystem solutions. Right now, typically when I look at it, especially from institutes like MIT, industry's engagement with research in institutions was well known. industry's engagement with education is becoming much more pronounced now, and which is really because prior to launching all these initiatives, we had a task force on higher education at MIT, where we're looking, and one of the things we saw was the increasing permeability between educational actors and industrial actors. I will tell you many of our EdTech innovations around between 2000 and 2006 came through a partnership with Microsoft Research. Cisco, you know this pretty well. And I think it's that kind of permeability that has increased. The only qualification I'd like to put to all the industry folks over here is that industry's participation, or the corporate sector's participation, should not stop with buying and throwing devices, but really perhaps we have to look at more fundamental ways in which they can engage, including sort of at a high level, putting out the requirements that you require of people like our young friend, about what is it that you want in graduates, and how might educational institutions prepare this, because now that that opportunity is there. We do a very large project, NGOs you mentioned. I mean, certainly the foundations, we have Al Ghurair over here. And one thing I wanted to say, the tendency is to think that Al Ghurair is funding innovation, innovative practices in AUB and AUC. It is supporting educational innovation at MIT. There's bidirectionality over here. We are learning from this process that applies to our practices. When we were talking about the MicroMasters, it was a figment of imagination and conversations when we started talking. So we really have to think about that process. So India, there's a project that we do with 1,100 schools, right? Government schools. The ecosystem, we work with the state governments. We work with 2 NGOs, one of whom does physics curriculum development, one of whom does math curriculum, and there's MIT, and there's another institute, the Tata Institute for Social Sciences. It takes at least those 4 village leaders to comprise the village in order to even make minimal traction in the project. We can't do it alone. It has to involve this.
Dr. Kumar, I think we will have another session specifically for the part about MIT learning from AUC, but I'll talk about that. So the lady.
Hello, my name is Amal Abousitta. I have a PhD in educational research from Lancaster University in the UK. And my question is for Dr. Tariq. You've talked about your plan to address some of the challenges in relation to culture, in relation to technology, and making devices available to students and teachers. I was wondering whether you could please shed some light on the challenge of the educational approach, or the approach to education in general, which I think is one of the main challenges in Egypt, shifting from mere memorization towards the encouragement of the culture of inquiry, an education that is based on liberal arts approach or philosophy. I'm assuming that, I'm asking, is the plan to Arabize existing courses, successful courses, or are we inventing our course content? And if so, how are you planning to ensure that it's aligned with the most recent educational approaches and philosophies? Thank you.
We'll take 2 more questions. In the back.
Okay. My name is Minna. I'm a freshman student at the AUC. OpenCourseWare is a really useful portal where students can actually access a lot of information, understand a lot of courses online for free. If there was an Egyptian version of OpenCourseWare on some kind of portal, just like the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, my question for Dr. Tariq, what is the potential of such a system to eradicate, for students to actually watch content online? For example, for a system like Sanawiyya Amma, what is the potential for such a system to eradicate the epidemic of private tuitions we have currently in Egypt? Thank you.
One more question.
My name is Nada. I'm a student here at AUC, and my question is to Dr. Tariq. If you talk about disruption and innovation in the Egyptian education system, I think one of the main challenges that, yes, is the culture and the resistance of people but also a main challenge for the quality of education in Egypt is the quality of teachers, especially in public schools. So my question is, what is the kind of policies or solutions for having a better quality of teachers, especially that kids in their early stage, they are influenced more by the teachers, not by their parents, in terms of how they receive learning and receive education? Thank you.
So I have to confess, I told Maisa a minute ago, relax, all the questions will go to Dr. Tariq. So, so Dr. Tariq. Sure. Last question.
So I have a loud voice, I think. Oh, okay. So thank you very much for this panel. I think this is one of the events that really re-engages all the audience, and we really believe that there is a chance, there is hope, and getting to hear some of the insights from Dr. Tora and the esteemed panelists really excites, I think, everyone in the audience. My name is Yahya Badawi. I run a computer programming school here in Egypt, and my question is to Dr. Tora and to the panelists as well. Blended learning affords the more customization for students, and I want to get some insights from you, Your Excellency, about how do you plan on applying this in lower grades in schools? How much customizations are students going to get? And then I would love to hear your thoughts on integrating more computer programming and computational thinking in the curriculum. Thank you.
Excuse me? Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you for availing this opportunity in AUC, because this is really a very important issue to discuss. I had many questions for Dr. Tariq, but I will summarize it in only one question. Now, you said that you will promote or start this blending education and accreditation of blended education from abroad, perhaps, starting 2018. Okay, what about those students who already have taken postgraduate studies as blended degrees? Because the High Commission for Universities is so, and sorry to say that, so bureaucratic about what they're doing, and I just want to know what's your stance on this. Thank you.
I've just earned my master's in mechanical engineering, and my very specific two questions are there opportunities for PhD in blended education? And being a science field, would this restrict it only to like numerical type of study? I mean, is there an option for also research? So is there PhD opportunities, and what would be the form of it? Thank you.
Well, those are very solid questions, actually. They require a lot more time, but I'm glad that we are having this discussion. I rarely have discussion on education when I'm immersed in the administrative work back in the office, but we think about that. We have actually a group of people I work with from inside and outside and so on. We call ourselves the dream team to boost our own ego and get ourselves pumped about this goal. So we discuss all these issues, but I just want to pick on Nada's question first. You put your hand on a big issue, which is quality of teachers. And having said that, maybe while I'm here at AUC, I'll tell you or ask you or plea for help. If I know AUC has a lot of academic talent, and we do need a set of diagnostic tests for teachers. I want to diagnose teachers, like have a set of tools, a set of assessments for existing teachers to classify them, if that is possible in one way or another, apply to Egyptian teachers. We also need a training that could be used, short-term training, like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, even up to 12 weeks, if applied to fresh graduates, can prepare them to be qualified teachers for early childhood, to fit with our plans for next year. A short-term repurposing to create those, because we are having a huge void in this area. There aren't enough teachers at the right quality to deliver those big hopes. So you are right, and we have a big battle with the quality of teachers, with the role of the Professional Academy of Teachers. We're discussing with colleges of education the kind of output that they produce today. But we do have 1.3 million teachers in the pipeline nonetheless, and it's a major issue. So our biggest barrier is really the quality, and we are thinking of even calling, like in war times, calling on reserves, calling on the public to come and help us. We can't wait. We're not going to change the timeline, but we're going to get good teachers in the classrooms one way or another. So this is a big area, Any help AUC could provide is highly appreciated. For Amal Abu Sitta, this is all we're thinking about, Amal, what we call Education 2.0, the new car, if you wish, the new building, whatever. This is all about changing that philosophy, essentially. It's not the curriculum, it's the philosophy. It's what do we really want at the end of the... And it starts with early childhood. That's our focus now, because we're going to accept KG 1, 2, and first grade. So the next few years, it's all about how to build the character of those children, where are we taking them, and so on. So this is the discussion day and night on that. We're not copying any existing system, but we are learning from other experiences and customizing them to the Egyptian context. There is no copy and paste, it never works. So we are tossing between many ideas, kind of converging right now. We have some assets here that were never used. I mean, the model of Nile schools, for example, you can say a lot of stuff about how it was managed, blah, blah, the business model, but at the core of it, there is a huge curriculum that was paid for and developed, and it's really good. Now, how do we take that asset and move with it? The ideas embedded in the IB, in the International Baccalaureate, are quite exciting, and the Singapore or Far East model of focusing on core values, ethics, character building, citizenship for a big chunk of what you do with a child, almost 50%, and cognitive skills are like 30%, and the rest are liberal arts and music, arts, and sports, and so on. So the ingredients of the new system are all like that. We're following this spirit, and we're actually very open to ideas that were not even implemented before. We're thinking if we need testing to start with in the first early years, and we're just going as far as possible from acquisition and delivery of knowledge. This is exactly why we are getting a new car. But to get the right teachers for that, to believe in this philosophy, are able to deliver it, is a big challenge. It's a very big challenge. And this is what is happening, what's brewing right now. On educational resources, the EKB is a huge step. We are already having 34 partners. We are not just buying content from them, actually. We are forging partners. They are partners in the dream. Everyone is contributing to it, and they are helpful to higher education. Of course, Dr. Ihab knows that. Half of them are serving higher education, the other half basic. We're going to the Frankfurt Book Fair this year to finalize 17 more editions. They're quite fascinating. Contents and digital content and curricula from first grade to 12th grade will be online. The AKB is different from the open internet because it's all reviewed material. So this is a nationally supported platform with reviewed material. So it saves you the effort from a point of view of accreditation. No one is questioning the authenticity of content. And that's a big deal. And we are going to add more to it. We're going to quit printing school books within a year or two and just move completely to it, so that students will have devices that are fed from the cloud, that books will go to them, instructions, exams, they will take exams on those devices. We'll have online and handwritten exams that are graded electronically. We'll have a lot of changes very quickly and save a lot of money on old practices, but also open a new world for them. So the EKB is an ingredient. So it's all about open educational resources. A country like the Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, are all excited and willing to join the EKB also. So this thing is going to grow and cross the Arab world, and it's going to have implications. We're going to contract a very interesting learning management system, really exciting. It's not a traditional one. It's not like Blackboard or WebCT. It's really quite flexible, and it's going to serve like 20 million students, so it has to be robust enough. And we found that after 6 months of testing, we're going to have it up and running before the end of 2017. That will open the door also for higher education and basic education for different kinds of use of technology. So it's all working. The accreditation issue in colleges, I can't speak for that. My colleague, Dr. Khalid, who's a close friend in higher education, can talk to it. But the good news, we talk a lot about that. We talk a lot about, because we are at the end, the education system is a coherent body here. So the output of basic education goes to college. We have to work together. We're thinking of admission criteria to college as much as how to grade in our side, but how to admit students. Our experiment in blended learning, usually it happens in higher education, not in basic education. But because we are having more, I don't want to build more concrete walls like we do today. I want to invest in people really and in the philosophy of education rather than walls. The easiest thing is to build a concrete wall, but the rest, to build a human, is much harder. And that's why we are deviating from those old models. But Dr. Khalid and I speak all the time, and I'm a member in the Supreme Council. This didn't happen before. The Minister of Education is a member of the Supreme Council of Universities, and they are members in our higher council for basic education. So we are really now one team, which is good. So we are just developing this culture of blended learning. It's going to be accredited by default for basic education. So that may change the mindset of the universities over the next few months, I hope.
Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming to EUC today. I'm sure that will be future events where we can host Dr. Tara and other colleagues. Thank you, and this is the end of our session today. Thank you.